If your playing is shaky, amateur feeling, and lacking in precision and control, then this lesson is for you. These common problems leave you feeling like no matter what, you'll never be as solid and tight and musical as your favorite drummers, so we've absolutely got to fix this. Employ this secret to precision that honestly no drummer wants to practice, and I promise you, your playing will become more precise, controlled, and full of musical dynamics. You can do this. Hey, welcome to The Non-Glamorous Drummer. I'm so excited that you're hanging out with me today. I help beginner and intermediate drummers become the musicians that others want to play with and listen to and have in their band. And we do this by teaching you the core skills that get you the fastest, deepest results in the practice room. And hey, if you are a drummer with a weak hand, one hand just doesn't work as well as the other, this represents most of us, then I have a special free gift for you. If you're struggling with playing smooth fills around the kit, you can't navigate well, things just feel stiff and clumsy because probably that left hand just isn't working, I want you to grab my free mini course. It's called Eliminate Your Weak Hand in 3 steps. It's going to help you achieve freedom with your hands so that suddenly there's no longer a weak hand plaguing you. Both hands are equally capable. Just imagine that for a moment. Both hands are equally capable and you can smoothly play and sound awesome. That's what I want for you. And so if you've got a weak hand, let's not deal with that weak hand any longer. Go grab that free mini course. It's in the description below. I'll see you there. First, on with today's lesson. The secret to precision that no one wants to practice. So we're going to kick this off with a quote from the one and only George Lawrence Stone, author and creator of the stick control method. This is really interesting what he says here in the introduction to the book. He states very eloquently, "Strange to say, practice and lighter execution will, by giving you a fuller control of the sticks, help your power, endurance, and speed." So basically, this is such a funny, counterintuitive kind of thing, but basically what he's saying is, so this is weird, but by practicing quietly, you're actually going to gain more control over the sticks. And that more control is going to lead to more power and endurance and speed, which is pretty crazy. So, what is our secret to precision that no one wants to practice? Playing quietly. How many of us actually want to sit here and play quietly? I don't. It's tedious. We hate it. It kind of feels like being back in school doing math and we're just trying to get through math problems and it feels like our brain's getting fried. I totally understand that, and it requires a lot of patience to sit here and do something that's so nitty-gritty and so tedious, but know that the rewards are huge. If you can sit here, if you can tough it out through that challenge of just, I hate this, you will actually learn to hate it less because you'll get better at it. Because so just a secret here, when you get better at this and you learn the right grip to use, that's what we're going to talk about today, and you know the right things to practice to really get better at it, it is no longer nearly as tedious as it once was, and you will hate it less, it'll feel less like a math test, and you'll actually be able to do it very consistently. And in doing this, you're going to develop that speed and that power and that endurance and that control that's going to help your playing so much and open up a wider level of dynamics in your playing, which, by the way, is the key to groove and musicality in your playing. If you can make your louds very loud, but make your softs really, really soft, that widens your range so you have all this space to travel through in terms of how loud you're playing, and it gives your groove so much more dimension. So all of that to say, this may be tedious, this may require some patience, but I hope you're up for a challenge because the rewards are great. If you want to get rid of that shaky feeling, amateur playing, and actually sound really solid and musical and be able to just have dynamic depth to your groove, this is it for you. So this is really a 2-part, very simple lesson. We're just going to talk about the hurdle that's keeping you from easily playing softly. It has to do with your grip. We're going to talk about optimizing your grip to make soft playing easier. And then we'll talk about how to ultimately build this precision and control and musicality, which is just how do we practice this? What should we actually practice on our pad, on our snare? So don't worry, I'm giving you everything you need. Let's dive into this. The hurdle keeping you from easily playing softly. Here's what it is. Most drummers are not actually using the ideal grip for soft playing. Because what you have to keep in mind, and if you've watched a lot of my videos, you've heard me say this before, what works for playing loudly does not work for playing softly. Now, I want to keep this as simple as possible. I've definitely heard from some students before, like, Steven, you're talking about how simple grip is, and learn this one thing, and you can do everything on the drums. But yet, then you're telling us, okay, do this for loud, do this for soft, do this for ride, do this for high. I don't want to overwhelm you and confuse you in any way. So know that we're not fundamentally going to change anything about our grip here. basically, for probably 95% of drumming, you're going to use one of these two grip variations. Remember that fundamentally, we're always going to have a fulcrum point. We're always going to have a fulcrum here. That's where the stick needs to live, where it's going to stay, where it's going to hinge. And that fulcrum can slide around a little bit, depending on what makes the most sense, what's comfortable to you. And this is something we've talked about in other lessons in a lot of detail. I'll definitely link those in the description. You can check those out for more info on that. And so that's a constant. There's always going to be a fulcrum. When we're playing loudly, it's going to be this loose, wide open kind of motion that you may have seen me teach, and I'll always tell you to be wide open and loose. When you're playing loudly or you're moving around the kit, you want lots of rebound. If you're playing slowly and loudly, that's when you really want this big kind of loose, open grip. But what if we take that same grip to when we're playing softly? So we've got this wide open kind of looseness here, and we try to translate this to soft. Well, of course, the stick isn't moving as much, so we kind of just have it resting right here in the fulcrum. It's not really touching any of our other fingers. And we can make this work, but it just feels a little bit out of control. And it makes me feel a little bit uneasy. It goes back to the math thing where I feel like I'm sitting here and I'm doing math problems and there's a timer going and the test is almost over and I'm just trying to get through these last few math problems. I feel like I'm back in, 8th grade. And it's like, can I do it? Can I do it? Can I keep this going? Because this loose grip just doesn't offer enough control for the really quiet playing. So here's all we want to do. We're not fundamentally changing anything about the grip. This is still the same grip. We're just firming it up a little bit by bringing our fingers around so that, yeah, we still kind of have that middle finger fulcrum, but the index is curving around too. So it's almost like what we could call a double fulcrum. It's technically not a double fulcrum. It's really a middle fulcrum that's just insulated and just extra secured by that index finger as it curls around. And so this variation of the grip, we basically want all of our fingers touching the shaft of the stick so that as we're playing, we're feeling the stick with every finger, plus our thumb, of course. And so we're really just playing from our wrist. We're letting our wrist control that motion because think about it, when you're playing this softly, you can't really rely on rebound because this is what happens. You just get all this extra bouncing and buzzing. It doesn't work. When you're playing really soft and when you're having to control the tempo exactly and it's not necessarily going to be the tempo the stick wants to go, when you want to have that level of control, you have to play from your wrist, which means you have to be firmer here so that we're making sure the stick is doing exactly what we want it to do. And that's the control that George Lawrence Stone is talking about. You have to exert more control over the stick in order to play well softly, which is kind of the opposite of when we're playing big, open, and loose, where in a way we're letting go of some of that control and just letting the stick do its thing. And that works great for when we're playing slowly and loudly. But whenever we want to get quicker, so there's the speed thing, and whenever we want to get softer, we have to actually exert more control, but we have to be calculated and precise in how we're going to exert that control and make sure that we don't squeeze too tight. So what I want you to do is probably form a fulcrum about right here on the middle finger. Gently curve the other fingers around. Make sure there's no squeezing anywhere. The stick is just being gently cradled. It still should be able to move a little bit within your hand. Like there should be some room for movement here. It's not totally tight. But you want it to be firm enough that you're able to play from your wrist and probably have a 2-inch stick height maybe. If you've never worked on this, if you've never worked on this quiet grip, then this is going to be a game changer because this is going to help so many things in so many areas of your playing, just realizing, oh, you know what? If I adjust my grip slightly, suddenly I can play a lot better softly. The problem hasn't been me, it's just been my grip. When you learn the right grip, suddenly your grip is working for you and not against you, and suddenly you're empowered to be able to do this. And you're like, hey, I can actually do this. The problem wasn't that I'm incapable and untalented, it's that I just wasn't gripping right. Now you've got the right tools. You could think of this as, hey, now I've got the right tools for the job so I can actually execute this much better. So let's move on to the exercises here, how to ultimately build your precision, control, and musicality. So what we just discussed, you could think of that as our how. Like, how are we going to do this? Well, this is the how. It's important that we've got our grip right so that our grip is working for us. This is the what now. We want to talk about what exercises, specifically what should you sit down and practice on your snare, on your pad, every day so that you're building these skills and gaining that precision and control. This is very simple, by the way. We're not doing anything crazy here. We're going to start off just with quiet eighth note singles, one hand at a time, at 100 beats a minute. Here's 100, so let's say we're doing right hand first. Just like that. Now, if that feels really tedious to you, which it very well might, remember that it's going to feel that way probably for a couple of reasons. The first one being that you're still getting used to this firmer grip. Once you do thoroughly get used to the grip where you're not having to think about it anymore, this gets easier because, again, less to think about means easier. But also, if you're just not used to staying exactly in time and getting your wrist to play exactly in time, it's going to take time to really build that brain connection, because that's what you got to remember here and what you have to be patient with. Your wrist is 100% controlling the pace that your stick is going at, the tempo here. And so if you haven't specifically practiced training your wrist to do these small motions precisely and in time, it's going to be a little bit challenging at first. And even if you're a fairly experienced drummer, and even if you're good at playing loudly, you're going to find there's some challenge here with these subtle motions. But subtlety is everything in drumming. When you can do these subtle motions, that allows you to play ghost notes really well. It allows you to add all this dynamic range to your playing, which makes your groove more compelling and more musical. Remember, that's our end game here. So if you need to slow your metronome down even more, that's okay. You could slow it down to 80. And as I'm doing this, you'll notice how I'm very quickly, like the stick is not spending much time on the pad or on the head, if you know what I mean. I'm not doing this. Make sure this is not happening. We don't want it pressing onto there. We don't want it buzzing. Instead, it's like touching a hot stove. We're just tapping. It's just like if you take your finger, just tap lightly. It's like it's hot. Imagine that your snare drum is hot. You got to get your stick off of there. Don't let it burn. That's the mindset we want to have here. So it's just this boom, boom, boom. Think staccato, think quick, pop, 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 pop. That's the kind of mindset we want to have. And by the way, I don't want to gloss over this. Grip your stick further up. When you're playing softly, don't grip way down here. Pay attention to this. This is game-changing for a lot of students, where I'll be watching them and I'll realize, oh, they're gripping down here. How did I not notice that? And I tell them, hey, just shift your grip up a little bit. And they're like, whoa, this is so much different. This is so much easier. It's funny how those simple things like that, again, the problem wasn't you. The problem was not that you didn't have the talent, that you just didn't have the skill. It's that you didn't have the right tools for the job, so to speak. Suddenly you've got the right tool. When you slide your finger up, it's like, the stick is now working for me and not against me. That's the key here. When you've got your grip doing what it's supposed to, it makes this easier. When you grip a little further up the stick, it makes this easier. So if you have Vic Firth sticks, I recommend thumb on the American flag. Probably don't go past the H in Firth, but this is a really good spot to be when you're trying to play softly. So if you need to go as slow as 80 doing those eighth notes, totally fine. But if you can get it pretty consistent at 100, our goal is to be able to do this consistently, where we just keep going and don't stop and don't wander from the metronome, where we keep our stick height consistent, where it's feeling good, like, hey, this is consistent and sounding the same for 1 minute. Our goal is 60 seconds of this. So you could do the math and figure out how many measures, like how many bars, how many notes are we going to play to equal 1 minute, or have a timer set somewhere else. But it doesn't have to be exactly a minute. That's just a good mile marker. If you can do this for a minute, then you're in really good shape. And from there, you can gradually increase the tempo. But the point here, the goal is not to immediately gain a bunch of speed with this, though it is great to get to where you can start playing consistently, quietly, more quickly. What we want to do before we get there, though, is actually bring in both hands. So we've practiced our quiet eighths, just right hand, just left hand. Now we want to play them as 16ths, both hands together, just like this. And it's always good to pause and check, all right, where are my hands gripping? Are they gripping at the same spot? Hey, I'm guilty of this, where my left hand will be gripping down here because I'm used to playing backbeats on the snare and gripping the stick closer to the button for a loud backbeat. Right hand's more comfortable here, so sometimes I have to check myself and go, all right, am I gripping at the same spot? You'll be able to play these much more evenly if you're gripping at the same spot. By the way, if you've encountered that unevenness with your singles, where you get that galloping, where it's just not even, there may be a weak hand for sure. Sometimes the weak hand can be the issue, but also you might not be gripping the same way. Make sure you're gripping the same way. The same firm grip right hand as you're doing with your left hand, and you've got your fulcrum, your thumb basically at the same point on the stick. So you've got the same amount of extra stick down here. Just keep an eye on that. Be aware of that. And of course, do your best to relax. Do your best to keep that dynamic consistent. Keep your stick height the same, dynamics consistent. Relax as best as you can. Don't get tense. As you do this more and more, you'll be able to relax more and more. Now, here's a third exercise, third and final one. I think this one's a lot of fun because we can finally break away from the super soft playing and begin to mix this in with the loud playing. And this can be challenging if you're new to these grip shifts, these grip adjustments we're making. But what we want to do for this exercise is start off soft. And then get really loud over the course of probably 2 measures, though you could do it longer. So if we're doing 100 beats a minute here, we could do 2 measures crescendoing, that's our Italian musical term for this, gradually getting louder, and then 2 measures decrescendoing, just like this. And that's not much time to get really loud and get really soft again. So you could also do every 4 measures, you could do it like this. And so you've got a multi-layered challenge here of making sure you stay in time as you change your dynamics, but you're also making sure you're transitioning those dynamics smoothly. Like think of this as a linear graph where 2 bars in, you want to be halfway up. So if this is your stick height for quiet and this is your stick height for loud, be right here 2 bars in, be right here 1 bar in, or right here 3 bars in. You get the idea. Try to be as consistent and smooth as possible. And by doing this in front of a mirror, that can make it a lot easier, or by filming yourself, that can really help a lot. But hey, I have to give you the warning here. I have to give you the challenge and the warning to not take shortcuts with this. We tend to not spend enough time with this. And if you find that you're not gaining the precision and control and speed that you want to from this, it may be that you're not spending enough time doing this. This needs to be a regular part of your practicing. Like sit down and spend 15 minutes just doing this, or 30 minutes if you can. Like devote serious time regularly to working on quiet playing so that this all becomes muscle memory. There are no quick hacks to this. If you were hoping for a quick hack in this lesson, this is not it. And most of the time in drumming, yes, there are certain things that are kind of like hacks, like shifting your grip to here for soft playing. That can instantly make things easier. There are things you can adjust on your hi-hat or your kick pedal that instantly make things easier. There are tuning tricks you can do that instantly make your drum sound better. But for the most part, 90% of everything is what you are doing, you as the drummer. So you've got to be optimizing your grip, your motion, your thinking, your mindset as you're practicing. So I want you to go into this with the mindset of, all right, I'm not going to take shortcuts. I'm going to really dig into this. I'm going to take action, and I'm going to make sure I can stay consistent for 1 minute, and then longer over time. I'm going to practice gradually getting louder, gradually getting softer, because remember too, as you gradually get louder, you're loosening up your grip. You're starting off with that firmer kind of grip. As you get louder, things loosen up to allow for that stick motion like this, wide open. As you get soft again, it's becoming firm again. So you're learning how to transition between those and make them seamless, and that's the whole challenge of that third exercise. So know that these are things that take time. Yes, this is simple, this is fundamental, but these are the things that even professional drummers practice regularly and need to practice regularly. These are the kinds of things that I practice every day when I sit down at my pad. If I'm sitting down to practice, this is the kind of thing I'm starting with. Very softly, very loudly, and everywhere in between. And I want you to do the same if you want to build up that musicality, that precision, that tight, professional, solid kind of playing that I know you're capable of, that you know you're capable of. So I hope you've been following along with me today. Otherwise, head to the practice room, take action on this, get busy because you could do this. So what's standing in your way? What weakness can you pinpoint? What issue is going on right now? What is keeping you from precision? What's keeping you from control or from speed or from power in your playing? Can you narrow it down? Is it one of the things we talked about today? Is there a weak hand? Is there a weak hand? Maybe you just need to dive into that weak hand mini course I told you about. Eliminate your weak hand in 3 steps. Maybe that is a program for you. It's totally free. It's in the description. That might be all you need to do to really get your hands balanced out. But maybe you've never really practiced quiet playing. Maybe you've been a gigging drummer for years, but you've just never quite felt good about the quiet playing. Maybe when you have to play in a small room, you just feel shaky and things don't feel right. Figure out what that is. What's standing in your way? What weakness can you pinpoint? What from today's lesson are you going to take and run with to really tighten up your playing and make sure that you're sounding much more professional, much less shaky, and much more musical and dynamic as you create compelling grooves that really feel awesome. So I hope this lesson's been valuable to you. This has been fun. I love these nitty-gritty but simple kinds of just so important lesson topics, so I really hope this helps you out. Know that no matter what, if you take action on this and you practice this, you can do it. You will get results. So go to your practice room and do that. Hey, I'll see you on the next lesson. In the meantime, know that you can do this. Stay non-glamorous. Take care.